Hello you guys, it's Baking Hot. Welcome back to the channel, another Falconry episode. For you guys today, I want to actually talk about the kit you need before you get your first bird. And I'm kind of going on, your first bird's most likely to be a harrisawk, probably a redtail, or possibly something like a lanner falcon to fly to a lure. I'm going to say they're kind of your first type of birds, which should really be the rest of your life birds, shouldn't they? Some of you might get a goshawk as your first bird. Some of the more foolish might get something like a kestrel or a sparrowhawk. Don't do that really. We're going to say medium-sized falcon or a medium-sized hawk. What kit do you need before you start? So forgetting, I'm not going to take out of that, I'm going to remove out of that knowledge, in so much as books, get some books, reading, learning off others, actual physical equipment really that you're going to need. Some of it very basic, some of it you might get away with not having for a while, but I'm going to very quickly talk you through. I'm pretty much not going to go into any detail at all about what each bit of kit's for. That's for another video or for you to find out, but to give you some idea, because people actually say to me, Dave, what will I need to get a hawk? The hawk is most likely to be the cheapest part of the whole deal. Don't just think I can afford a harrisawk, they're 250 quid, because that is the minimal thing. It's going to cost you hundreds or thousands. But what I will say in the whole of this is you can get cheap kit, you can buy expensive kit. It doesn't always mean one's better than the other. If you go on eBay and spend £3 on a swivel, that's jeopardising the safety of your bird. It's probably going to break. If you buy a £25 glove instead of a £100 glove, that'll be fine. It's just that the £25 glove more than likely won't last as long, if nothing else. Equally, you can make stuff yourself. That includes your housing for your birds. You can make it, you can buy it, you can pay someone to make it for you. It's all relevant. I'm going to tell you the kit you need. Enjoy. So ideally, you're going to need a bell or two, tail or leg mounted. Right, and if they're on your legs, if they're on the bird's legs, you're going to need to make yourself some leather buoyets. You're going to need some anklets, of course, for your jesses. You're going to need flying jesses. You're going to need some swivels and some bells and some buoyets for the bells. Some swivels are really good and some swivels are absolutely worthless. And some of these are much better made, British ones. To be honest, for me, it's genuine Sampo swivels all the way for the kit I use. Don't buy a cheap swivel. Don't buy a cheap swivel. I have bought a swivel from a very, very long time, well-known falconry supplier, and it was rubbish and it broke. But generally, buy quality on kit that is life-saving or not. Of course, you're going to need a glove because you want to protect yourself from scratches and harm. And just as importantly, of course, as a glove, is your telemetry, because that protects the bird from harm, getting lost. Protects your investment. It's insurance for you because it protects your investment. And I'm not talking money, I'm talking all the love and time you're going to put into that bird. And if you're not, don't practice falconry. Some kind of leather grease or leather oil, neat's foot, belvoir, leather dress, balsam. You choose, all kinds on the market. You can even make your own. But if you don't dress the leather, it'll go hard and that's going to possibly impact on the bird's legs, but it'll also go dry and brittle and it will snap much easier. Well-oiled leather equipment that's well made will last you for years and years. Vitally important for all falconers, but especially the novice, is of course a set of scales. These ones, they're about 12 quid on Amazon. This kind of thing. You can make a perch out of a bit of wood. It doesn't need astroturf, the birds just recognise that. It doesn't matter about the astroturf for its feet, it's only going to be on there for a couple of minutes a day, but they do recognise it. I guess it is a bit more comfy. So a perch, whether digital or the much more nowadays expensive balance scales with a set of weights, which will cost you more than the scales. But for smaller birds, I've been using these for decades. Not this set, I just bung them away because they're 12 or 15 quid. Should they play me up in any respect, but really accurate, work wonders. Gonna need some travel boxes. Those days when we used to put our birds on a bow perch in the back of the hot hatch with the back seats down, yeah, that's not a good idea. If for no other reason, people gawk and you could cause an accident on today's busy roads. Travel boxes, I don't know, they're probably going to cost you between 100 and 150 quid for So something the size of a Harrisawk or a Redtail. Quality, old-fashioned, they all do the same job. Or you can make one out of wood. It needs to be well ventilated, but dark. Therein lies a problem. You need to know how to baffle the ventilation holes. Wood's fine. Make sure it's completely varnished and treated inside, and you keep it clean. Don't worry about it going mouldy and aspergillosis. If you keep it clean and the wood's treated, it won't. You're going to need a falconry bag or a falconry vest, like a Keith Wakefield vest, super high quality. Or you can buy one for 20 quid on eBay or something, a falconry vest or a falconry bag. It's not going to last you more than a season, but it might get you going, not critical to the bird's health. So it doesn't matter. You buy quality. I've had this for, oh goodness me, 35 years, this one. It's an ornament now. I use a Keith Wakefield vest because they're more practical these days. You don't need a squirrel because they'll bite your bird's legs. But you do need a bag. I've even seen a guy use an old lady's leather handbag. It's for putting your kit in at the end of the day and what you catch. Some are way more practical than others. You're going to need tail mounts. Whether you just crimp them on with a bit of araldite for your transmitter, or you make or buy plectrum style. You're going to need a tail mount, more than likely, for your telemetry transmitter. So Keith Wakefield vest, brilliant bit of kit. I've talked about these before on the video, so I'm just telling you now, there it is. I'm not going to explain it much, but you need that kind of falconry bag idea, some kind of vest. Pick a hood, any hood. But for goodness sakes, start as you mean to go on. Get some hoods that hopefully will, even with a bit of modification, fit your bird well, and use them. Learn to use them. You only get one really easy shot at hooding the bird, and that is as soon as you start holding it on the glove. Get a hood. 20 quid to hundreds of pounds if you like fine art. Get a couple of cheap ones. Once you've got them to fit and you've got your bird going well, you can always take that hood to a show, or just ask one of the British top hood makers to make you a fine bit of quality. Because if you look after your hood, it will last the life of your bird. You're definitely going to need a toolbox where you can put your bells, your tail crimps, your plectrums, swivels, clips, all kinds of things for your lure handles and your lure. Maybe your goshawk or your sparrow hook. You're not going to get a sparrow hook because you're just starting out. Maybe you're going to want a tail mount there. You're going to need some leather making equipment, because you are going to need to be able to make kit from leather. The hardest thing you're going to have in the UK is actually finding any quality leather. But you're going to need to learn how to make anklets for the birds, jesses for the birds, flying jesses for the birds. I use mostly braided kit for all those, and for the actual anklets made of leather, I buy them from people that make them well. Am I lazy? Partly, but actually I just can't find quality leather, and for a relatively inexpensive amount, buying decent quality anklets for my birds, that's what I'm happy to do. But you need to have backup and emergency stuff, and you might have nice braided kit. You might even have spares, but if your bird chews it one day or you lose it, it's handy that you can cut out and make yourself, with your tools and your kit, you can make yourself some jesses and things. You're going to need some relatively inexpensive pliers if you're going to crimp those tail mounts on like I do. You're definitely going to need some coping tools, some fine metal files, and some fine wire cutters as a very basic thing to trim back the beak on the bird if it gets overgrown, even the talons on rare occasions. But for sure, you're going to need a toolkit for stuff to keep stuff in, like your bells and things, and to keep your kit in to make stuff. You're definitely going to need a freezer to put the things you're catching and the rest of your bird food. And what about the bird's waste? Where are you going to put the waste bits of food that you cut off and discard? But you are going to need a freezer, and somewhere to put the freezer, of course. And if you're really lucky and you've got an old outbuilding or something, somewhere that you can have a sink for your food pots and your cleaning equipment, and even an old fridge like this one with more food in it on a hot day, so the food doesn't go off that you've thawed out. All this kind of thing, it can be a bit of a luxury. You can make that work in other ways, but for sure you need your food and you need your freezer, and you need somewhere to prep the food that you can wipe down and keep clean. You're going to need some kind of disinfectant. Safe 4's a new one on the market that seems to be taking the world by storm. Safe 4, F10, Falcon S, all got their own ways and their own ways of working and killing germs. But you're going to need something to disinfect things with now and again that actually isn't going to harm the birds. You're going to need some of this stuff, because you're going to need a weathering lawn, somewhere to put the bird out in the day. And to be honest, that means you're going to need something like this blooming thing that I'm now going to spend 2.5 hours sitting on. Good God, a ride-on mower, best fun in the world for the first time you use it, 20 minutes. After that, mowing lawns, what a boring job. You're going to need a training perch to train your bird on, because you're not going to fly it off of a fence when you first train it. It's going to forever try and get to fences to return to the glove for a bit of food. So get someone to weld you up a really cheap training perch, or buy one, or make one. Something the bird doesn't see in the natural course of flying and hunting, specifically to start that bird's training off. You're going to need a clearance line while you're doing that training, a dedicated bit of line, so the bird doesn't panic and bolt before it's ready to come back to you in that early stages. Worst bit of kit in falconry, can't stand them, but they've got their place and we need to use them just for a short while. When the bird's flying free, you're going to want a recall lure, a padded lure that you can tie a big chunk of food on as an absolute insurance policy for your hawk. And I'm not talking for your falcon, but of course you're going to fly your falcon to one of these if it's a lure bird. You're going to need a lure pad that you can reward the bird heavily on. That's your get out of jail for free thing that, yeah, if you lie to the bird and you stop putting food on it, it won't ever have that same instant response. But learn about why you'd use a lure pad for a hawk. The purpose of that recall lure can be just one of those things you use hardly ever after training, but it has an amazing, miraculous effect on the bird. You might want to exercise your hawk to a dummy bunny like this. To be honest, if you can, before you get your bird entered on real game, use a rabbit carcass. If, for instance, rabbits are your thing, they quickly learn this isn't a real thing. A rabbit carcass that you can feed it directly from will help you out no end. Once the bird knows its stuff, it might be worth having a lure pad, a dummy bunny, just for exercise, to make it chase things on days where you're not getting out hunting. But don't let it get wedded to this thing, this easy to catch thing and easy to kill thing, or it might not want to take the real thing. I'd start with a real carcass for your bird. So here on your weathering lawn, yeah, how are you going to stop the cats and nowadays the buzzards, maybe even thieves, annoying, hurting, attacking, stealing, killing your birds? Maybe this day and age, you're going to have to think about putting some cheap fencing around with a roof to stop things getting in to your weathering lawn and taking that bird out. Food for thought. You're going to need somewhere to keep your bird. Now, for instance, our Harris hawks, they're free lofted in aviaries. By now you know why the windows are barred and it's not open mesh, but you might use a simple mews with smooth pea gravel that you can hose through and wash down. Something like that, for instance. The bird's tethered there, just to give you some idea of what we're talking about. Of course, you are going to need a bath, whether it's there or out on the weathering lawn. You need a bath for your bird. Now your mews might have inside it, as an extension, your food and your weighing scales and all your kit and everything else. But if not, you're going to need somewhere, aren't you, like a weighing room and somewhere to store your kit and everything else. So a dedicated room for all the stuff. I can't tell you how annoying trees are at certain times of the year, whether they're putting all their blossom on the ground for me to pick up, well, probably not even me picking it up, or all their leaves in the autumn. But on that weathering lawn, you're going to need shade, and trees certainly provide that in a very, very good way indeed. You're going to need shade at certain times of the year. And of course, you're going to need perching, whether you use low blocks, high ring perches, bow perches. You need to work out what kind of perch you need for your bird. If it's going to be a tethered bird, which almost definitely it will be, certainly for the start of its training. So you need your weathering lawn, you need the correct perches, you need a bath, and you need the option of shade. Now, of course, if you've been tottling this all up at some kind of figure in your head as we've gone along, you're probably going to need something like this, something to sit on, because all of a sudden it's getting expensive and there's getting to be a very long list. And of course there is. You're looking after an actual animal for 20 to 30 years. You're going to need a lot of stuff, and you're going to need a lot of stuff whether you like it or not. Some of the stuff you can make, some of it you can make do, but you're going to need a lot of stuff whether you like it or not. So don't just say to yourself, oh, I'm going to get myself a hawk, they're only 200 quid. That's not going to get you anywhere. Those aviaries those aplomados are in, If you doubled them, you'd have a minimum size aviary maybe to keep your Harris Hawk, or for a Harris Hawk mews. This stuff's so expensive at the moment. If you've got to build something from scratch, it's going to cost you a lot of money just to house that bird, however you house that bird. On a perch in your spare room is not where to keep birds of prey, not at all. They need the sunshine and they need some fresh air, at least a bulk of the time. So remember, nothing on here is about knowledge. You are going to need some, not just your anklets, you're going to need some jesses. With me, my braided kit that I like to use, you're going to want to use an extender piece, decent Sampo swivel in line, and a leash. I like paracord leashes best, to be honest, but for the eagle we can get these made, woven together, braided, thicker for the eagle sized birds. But you're definitely going to need this kit for sure. And these things are why you need a glove. They don't mean to hurt you most of the time, but they certainly scratch you for sure. You're going to need to know what to do if your bird breaks a really important feather, like a train feather or a primary feather. You need to know how to imp that. So you're going to need some kit for imping, some imping rods maybe, or maybe you're going to carve your own imping needles from the bamboo grown in your garden and a bit of araldite. A lot of that's knowledge and skill, but it's still some kit you're likely to need, certainly as a novice. And this is why you need your leather grease, to keep them supple so they don't chafe against the bird's legs. You don't need one of these. Don't even go there. In that bag of yours, you're going to need a bit of room in there somewhere for all your kit that goes in your bag. Spare jesses, a knife. You're going to need a knife sooner or later. You might need a dispatch spike as well. You're going to need all these different things, but you're going to need one of these. A little kit you've made up or acquired with basic first aid for your bird. Something to staunch bleeding, something to bandage things down, maybe something to crop tube the bird so they have an injury and need something in there, some liquid in there that's going to pep it up. But for sure, don't not have any first aid kit for your bird, and to be honest, put something in there to staunch the bleeding on you when you get gored by a wild rose, or you manage to use that knife incorrectly and slash your finger open, because you're going to be a long way from anywhere. At least it'll stop the bleeding while your mates laugh at you. Get a first aid kit. If you think you're going to go out hawking with your mates on field trips, especially if you join a club, you're going to need a safety clip attached to your glove that you can clip onto the bird's jesses to a little hole in it. If that peregrine doesn't shut up in a minute, to a little hole that you've made in one of its flying jesses. Just a safety clip so that you're not that muppet that slips your bird by accident out of turn when it's someone else's bird's turn and the two birds crab together and one of them puts a talon in the other and you don't think there's any harm done, and then it dies of an infection a week later. Don't be that person. You look like a right numpty. Seen loads of them. Put a safety clip on your glove if you're going to go out in the future with your mates on days out with all your birds. There are some silly things you're going to need. Do you know what? If you can put something on your phone like what 3 words, some kind of app that'll pinpoint where you are, because you can't tell the emergency services what road you're on. You won't be on one. You'll be in the middle of nowhere. You won't know how to describe it. When you're old like me and you have a heart attack, or you fall down a gully and break your ankle, or some other serious thing happens because you're out on your own and now you're stuck with a plaster that you remember to put in your first aid kit, put an app on your phone, what 3 words or something, you can dial 999 and they'll find you to the nearest meter. Silly things like that, not for your birds, but could be a lifesaver in the future. Also, of course, if you've got a loved one, put that in there, an ice contact in case of emergency, so when they get to you, they know who to call and say he's been a silly boy or a silly girl. That's not helpful for the sound quality. So, you definitely don't need to hear that. And I tell you now, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear your hawk doing that, and neither do your neighbours. So that again, that comes into, you need to know knowledge, look into training and the methods of training the birds properly, in the vain hope you don't, as a novice, produce a screamer. But listen, I've got this lawn to mow. I've been waffling and mooching around doing this video, believe it or not, for an hour now. I've got to crack on, but I just hope this video has given you some food for thought. Like most animal keeping, acquiring and paying for the actual animal is the negligible bit. Many things we keep, it's not that cost or that effort to get the animal, it's all the kit with it. And because falconry is a dynamic thing, you're not just keeping a bird in a cage, it's dynamic. There's so much knowledge and so much equipment needed for your sanity, but more importantly, for the safety, well-being of that animal. You can skimp financially on a lot of this stuff because you can make stuff. You don't have to buy the best quality stuff, but generally in falconry, the best British made quality tends to outlast and outperform cheap stuff you find on eBay. And some of the cheap stuff on eBay is dangerous to your bird's welfare. Some of that stuff will kill it. Simple thing, couple of quid for a swivel we mentioned earlier. That swivel breaks and the bird flies off, but its jesses bound together by the top half of the swivel. When it lands in a tree, it's going to get hung up and it's going to die, and it's going to die a horrible death. Get the kit, think about the kit. There's going to be so much I've forgotten, and I'm hoping you will be saying, ha ha, Dave, you didn't mention this and you didn't mention that, because you've already done your research, and this is just a little video I hope to refresh you. But for sure, this place, with I don't know how many is here, I never count, 25 or 30 birds of prey, it takes up so much time from so many people to look after and to fly, exercise and train those birds. You're just going to have one, but it's still going to take up time. And I think time is probably, it is the most valuable accessory you need for falconry, because your time will run out, and whatever you do with your time, you're paying for things with your time. When you go to work to earn money, you're swapping your life for money to buy other things. Hopefully with falconry, you're using your time to carry out a passion that'll interest you and entertain you. You don't want to hear that for the rest of your life. Please subscribe, check back for more. Thanks for watching.